Welcome to Ayna Insights, where prominent leaders and influencers shaping the industrial and industrial technology sector discuss topics that are critical for executives, boards, and investors. Ayna Insights is brought to you by Ayna.ai, a firm focused on working with industrial companies to make them unrivaled segment of one leaders. To learn more about Ayna.ai, please visit our website at www.ayna.ai.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of our Titanium Economy podcast series presented by Ayna Insights. Today we are thrilled to be joined by an exceptional leader and visionary in the manufacturing and technology space, Mr. Alok Maskara. Alok is the CEO of Lennox International, a global leader in energy-efficient climate control solutions committed to sustainability and innovation. With over 25 years of leadership experience across industries like advanced materials, water treatment, and HVAC, Alok has a proven track record of driving growth, fostering innovation, and transforming organizations. Before joining Lennox, he served as the CEO of Luxor Holdings, where he had led advancements in cutting-edge materials and held senior roles at Pentair, General Electric, and McKinsey Company. Alok also serves on the board of directors of Franklin Electric, a global leader in water and fluid systems. His ability to align strategic objectives with long-term value creation has made him a prominent figure in the industry. Alok, it's an honor to have you with us today. Welcome to the podcast, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mohit. Thanks for inviting me. Always a big fan of Anya, and I'll cut that. Hey, thanks, Mohit. Thank you for inviting me to the podcast. Great to be here. Always a big fan of Ayna, and congratulations to Ayna and Fernway for all the ongoing successes.
Thanks so much, Alok. So I want to start with an overview on Lennox, right? So give us an overview of Lennox International. What is the company's core mission, key products, and primary markets you serve?
Sure. So I think if you think of a company, our vision is to deliver perfect air for homes, buildings, and we do it through innovation and sustainable climate control solutions. We are a company 130 years old, built on the core foundation of our values, which are integrity, respect, and excellence. We are unique in quite a few ways. One is that we are very narrowly focused only on the North American market. So 100% of our sales are in US and Canada within the heating, venting, air conditioning, and refrigeration end market, which is commonly known as HVACR. One unique differentiating strategy about Lennox is that we distribute our own products. So unlike other manufacturers who would sell to a distributor, who sells to a contractor or a dealer, we sell directly to the dealer or contractor, which gives us some unique advantages, especially in today's age, as digital becomes very important, AI becomes important. The fact that we are belly to belly with 10,000 contractors allows us to collect insights faster, deliver technology solutions faster, and essentially get market share faster as well. We are publicly traded. We are on New York Stock Exchange. We have been public for 25 years. Revenues a little over $5 billion. EBIT about $1 billion, and market cap of about $21-22 billion. So that's who Lennox is.
All right, thanks so much for that introduction, Alok. So you referenced the HVAC industry there, right? And we know that the industry is undergoing rapid transformations, and there's a lot of emphasis on energy efficiency, sustainability, smart technologies, AI you mentioned already. So how do you envision these trends shaping the industry in the next 5 to 10 years? And what role do you think Lennox would play in this evolution?
Sure. The industry continues to evolve. I think energy efficiency is probably one of the greatest ones that we are facing. Lennox is known to make the most energy efficient air conditioners in the world. We also make the most efficient furnace in the world. And from that perspective, we are very well positioned. Other things, such as if you just think from smart technologies, our company, we make our own sensors, thermostats, control devices. We don't outsource those things. And that gives us another unique advantage. Our products are known to have really good controls. Even being an old type industrial manufacturing company, we use AI in our thermostats already. We used to call it machine language. Now we use the word AI because it's more sexy. But from our perspective, all industries are shifting, right? I mean, the status quo is just never an option. If you're not growing, if you're not advancing, you're declining. So in the next 5 to 10 years, I don't think there'll be any dramatic changes. Some key trends, such as electrification, is becoming more the norm versus early indicators. 35% of the industry products are now heat pumps instead of furnaces. So you can see furnaces are declining, heat pumps are growing. I think those things all continue. 10 years from now, I think we'll be more energy efficient. We'll use more AI to drive energy efficiency, both in manufacturing, but also for a home owner or a building to be able to use it. So pretty exciting times in our industry.
Yeah, and I think Lennox ambitions echo that, right? So when we look at your 2026 targets, right? So you're trying to achieve $5.46 billion in revenue, free cash flow equivalent to 90% of your net income. So what specific initiatives or strategies are driving this growth, and how confident are you in achieving these goals?
I'll start by saying we are very confident in achieving these goals. We gave these goals out about 2 years ago in December. And since then, we've already had to revise it upwards. So the number was lower and we had to revise it upward because we were way ahead in just the first year itself. So we remain very confident on reaching that goal. The key initiatives is kind of very straightforward. It's a 3-phase transformation plan. The first phase of that, we call it self-help. That had everything from fixing distressed factories to getting our pricing right to making sure our business culture becomes more focused on customer experience and quality. I would call it just blocking and tackling, right? So, but self-help. Second phase for us was growth acceleration. We are the smallest of the top 4 HVAC manufacturers in the US. And there's a big opportunity for us to gain share. And for many years, we just couldn't gain share because we were either out of capacity or were not distributing products properly. So I think the current phase where we are is just accelerating growth. Ideally, we'll get to a double-digit growth, with pricing power, with looking at inflation, looking at some regulatory changes that increases our mix. Okay, that'd be our goal. And the third phase for us is about expansion, where we start going into adjacent areas, try and get greater share of wallet, enter new products that we have not been before. But within those 3 phases, there's a bunch of detail, which I won't bore you with. But needless to say, we're very confident. We're very confident on getting the long-term goal.
And what is it about Lennox, the way you set up this program, the culture maybe within the company, right, that has allowed you to be so widely successful already in your approach?
A lot of it that's got to, Lennox has had good roots. It's always been a successful company, right? So this is more about taking a good company to greater greatness. So you're taking it to be easier, which I'd always heard, even in McKinsey, we used to talk about, if you have a company, you already have a good position, it's much easier to take them from second quartile to third quartile or third quartile to fourth quartile. So I think that's what we are working through. Sound strategy, right? I mean, strategy and focus is important. A lot of times I've seen companies used to have good strategy, but they won't focus on it. They're very narrowly focused. We live and breathe HVAC. Our leadership meeting, we talk about HVAC. We talk about our dealers. We sold businesses in Europe because we said, if you get on a plane to go to Europe, why don't you just go to Florida? We have greater growth opportunity in Florida versus what we can get in Europe. But the fact we are so narrowly focused is one of our greatest strengths. Our dealers like the fact that the CEO goes and visits them, where if you're a bigger company or a conglomerate or more diversified, you just can't do that. So from our perspective, focus. If you pick one word, it'll be focus.
All right, that's very interesting. Uh, Coming to some of the risks that we see, or at least we have seen in the industrial sector, right? So supply chain disruptions has been a big one across industries actually post-COVID. Lennox 10K itself mentions the risk tied to single location production facilities and reliance on key suppliers. How are you navigating these challenges to ensure operational resilience and meeting your customer demands?
Sure. Hey, listen, the supply chain thing is it's getting better, right? I mean, if you think about where we were in COVID and where we are, now we are all preparing to make sure that we don't suffer the same pain that we suffered during COVID. So that's why to go from single source to dual source is a big initiative for us. One of this dual source, we want to have it near shore. So if we have one in Asia, we are trying to move them from China to a Thailand or a Vietnam or India. And second source, we want either in US or Mexico and try and balance that. But we're also doing that to our own factories. I mean, we had commercial business only had one factory. We are setting up one more, and this one in Mexico, fairly parallel operation. So that way, I mean, God forbid, but earthquakes, fires, tornadoes, any of those things, we would still have resiliency. At the end of the day, customer doesn't care. They just want the product and they want it. So we have put a lot of investment and things are getting better. I mean, this is not a situation where I tell you things are getting worse. Despite all the noise about tariffs and everything else, most of us manufacturers are feeling things have gotten better. And now we're just preparing for the next thing to go wrong and wanting to make sure that we fare that with a position of strength versus in COVID, we were all just caught short-handed.
Yeah. Yeah, things about other talking about the other things that can go wrong, right? Labor shortages have been the talk of the town, right? So employee retention has remained a critical focus issue for many of industrial companies, especially in the manufacturing distribution space, right? So how is Lennox addressing these challenges to stay competitive?
Yeah, a good question. I think this is again a universal problem. I think earlier we used to call it war for talent. That's probably a term from 15, 20 years ago. You address the core aspects of it. So first of all, we focus on retention. We want to make sure the employees we have, we are able to retain them. And we've done a good job. Our retention, whether it's for hourly or salary, it's not perfect, but it's better than most of our peers. So that comes down to we, in stressed area, pay people above average. We give them good benefits. We treat them well. We don't force them into mandatory overtimes every weekend, things like that. So we're just known as a good company to work for. But then we still lose people, right? Just like everybody else does. So then we focus a lot on recruiting and investing more in recruiters and recruiting department, building a digital network. A lot of people now look for jobs through digital media, putting that all together. And that's kind of the addressing the labor. But the long-term solution is also where we are focusing on, right? Because these are shorter-term actions. It's a lot about automation. If you go to our factories, we are constantly taking processes and automating them. On the office or the SG&A side, very excited about AI, what AI can do to make our tasks more automated, more efficient. AI is good for growth as well, things like sales and pricing. But that's where, think of it, manufacturing type automation gets done with robots and SG&A type automation is getting done with AI now. So you're putting it all together. In general, again, some of the tough times are behind us. A year or two post-COVID, we had greater labor challenges. Now, just the pace of the economy, everything makes it feel like we're in a much better spot.
That's great to hear. I think one of the other things many companies also struggle with, right? So apart from the direct folks, right, there's a dearth of talent at the middle level, right? What we call the leadership bench strength, and how do you develop those people, right, and get them attracted to the industry? How's Lennox faring in that, right? Like, what's your perspective there on attracting enough talent at that middle to senior level?
We grow our own talent a lot more than others. Average tenure in my leadership team is probably 15 years. So from that perspective, we grow our own talent. But that's a constant challenge. A lot of that is also we do bring in talent at manager and executive level, that we need to populate more. We have a corporate initiative group. We bring a lot of people from BCG, Bain, McKinsey to typically have good leadership skills in that. And we do a lot of training. We're investing a lot in training. We call it LDP, Leadership Development Program. We recently started an SLDP, Senior Leadership Development Program. But we find, in a way, you got to find people with the right values, people who believe in our core values, and then we train them. So there's a lot of internal focus, and it's working well. We spend a lot on training, not necessarily dollars, because those are easy. It's more the leadership time. The entire leadership time spends a lot of time. I have one-on-one with every VP in the organization once a year. And that's a lot of time invested, but everybody in the company does that. And we keep going that to one level below, two level below. And overall, we are pleased with how much talent we can grow in-house as well. So,
yeah, that's very interesting. I think one thing that you've emphasized is the importance of aligning strategic objectives with long-term value creation. So can you share some specific examples of how Lennox is achieving this balance?
Yeah, that question is a good question because, and you guys know this, some of us being there, busy. It's not that hard. I mean, long-term value creation is NPV, right? So NPV is all about value of free cash flow to whatever ratio. So you gotta take risk-adjusted returns. I mean, all that's basic. But sometimes you forget that. One thing we do, and everybody in the team, all my finance people, I give them a book. It's called The Outsiders, about long-term value creation, and the McKinsey book on valuation too, by the way. So everybody, we go through that and remind ourselves about the basics. Because sometimes between accounting and adjusted earnings and all that, you forget that. We don't adjust our earnings. We just present the earnings as it is, and we are one of the unique companies to do that. I'm saying all that because you got to remove the fogginess, which often creeps in. And then once you have the fogginess removed and you can see straight and work with the core premises, it's very simple. Increase your growth rate. That will give you higher NPV, higher valuation. And then we put growth initiatives underneath that. Have higher margin and make sure they're resilient. So resilient and higher margin is important because obviously that gives you a safety net and it based on your industry position. And you want to avoid cyclicality. So we start doing level loading production and being in business aspects that avoid the cyclicality. And then it's straightforward. I mean, it's really not that complicated. One thing I've learned is you just have to talk about it multiple times. If we think we said it once and showed it once to the team, it doesn't work. And you kind of make it simple. We use acronyms. So I always talk about, hey, it's growth acceleration, it's a resilient margin, it's execution consistency, it's about advanced technology, and it's about talent. GREAT. So we call it the GREAT framework. Every town hall I will show it, every leadership meeting I do it, every board meeting, and we show how each initiative fits under that. While we use it with the investors, we use the exact same framework with the investors and town hall and the board, and keep showing all our initiatives so people get it. It's kind of simple. It's not that hard. I think the hard part is getting the fogginess out and getting away from the flavor of the day concept. At the end of the day, that's all it matters.
Yeah. So I think as you were talking about that, right, I was thinking about the earlier point you made about focus, that this again is somehow getting your team to focus in again and again, right? Because we've seen it time and again, right? When you're running on that treadmill, right, you just get lost in the minutiae, right? It's always so important to just keep coming back to the basics, right? The framework that you mentioned. Just make sure that the team is aligned, right? Everyone's working from the same book. So yeah, that's great to hear.
Yeah, I mean, you hear it, everybody says it, right? You got to focus. The question is, are you getting rid of the stuff where you're not supposed to focus, or do you just keep them on the side and hope it goes away? I think that's what we have found is stuff that you can focus on, get rid of it. That helps focus on the stuff that you really need to focus on.
It's very interesting. Thank you for sharing the perspective. So I think we also want to get some perspective on your own leadership journey, Alok, right? So I think I start off with this question to everyone, right? So what's top of mind for you, right? As a leader, as the CEO of Lennox, what keeps you awake at night? What are the things that you think about?
As Lennox, we are doing well. So I sleep very well at night. And as a CEO, if you don't sleep well at night and stress kills you, you're probably in the wrong job. When our jobs are stressful, our jobs are about balancing different priorities. So I see that, but I think the spirit of your question, which I'll answer, is, I worry about competition always, right? If you think about it, besides things like natural disasters, you worry about competition. 'Cause that's the stuff you don't know. I don't know what they are working on. I tell my team, imagine a similar room in a different location filled with similarly smart people who are trying to take share away from Lennox. What are they thinking? What are they doing? I mean, that's what it keeps me awake at night is how do we win against competition? And how do we fight the fair fight and make it grossly unfair in our favor, right? I mean, how can we make sure that we are winning unfair share? And what are the pieces we need to do? So that's what usually keeps me awake at night is competition. So getting market intelligence, following things on social media, asking our customers the NPS score and competitive NPS score. Those are things we focus on and say, best way is not to give your customer a reason to leave.
Got it. And what about some industry or technological trends, right, where you feel bullish or it's taking a lot of mind space for you that hey, this is where you probably want to go, or this is the next frontier. Where do you spend your thought and your mind space?
Some of we are old school manufacturing, right? So when you think of things like AI, we learn a lot, we experiment a lot. I probably have 10 to 12 AI learning labs going on in the company. Call it showcases. That could be about pricing, that could be in the legal language. There's an AI driven chatbot for ask HR benefits question. We do that so that employees are learning, employees are embracing new technology. It doesn't move the needle so far, right? Then you get to go to the next stage and saying, okay, how do I really move the needle with this? And I think a lot of companies are in that phase of AI. Just like when the web came out, people used to be just happy having a website, and then they're like, oh, how do I make money off it? They are in the same stage with AI and other technology. We stay abreast with the latest compressor technology, cooling technology, motor technology, which is not rocket science. And then we look at futuristic stuff. One thing that helps us is, again, going back to the fact that we are direct to the dealer, we monitor data from thousands of thermostats that are connected to the internet, data from warranty, data from this. So we have a whole data lake. And being as simple as we are a single ERP, everything is connected. We get a lot of insight just using that data. And that's exciting for us. And using that data with new tools like large language models and pulling insights out of that, that's kind of exciting to us. So, but listen, old school manufacturing company, we bend a lot of metal, we weld a lot of metal, we make a lot of money doing that too. So keeping abreast with the latest welding technology, the keeping abreast of latest robotic automation and things like that, that's important to us too.
All right. You also serve on the board of Franklin Electric. You've held roles across diverse sectors in advanced materials, water solutions, right? How have these experiences influenced your leadership at Lennox or your leadership style in general?
Sure. I'll tell you, first of all, Franklin is a great company. Thanks for bringing it up. It's got such a great, rich history and so much potential for it to be climbing up both from a growth acceleration and resilient margin. So I'm super excited about that. And I'm grateful to be on that board. My experience sitting on a board makes me a better CEO because now I can see the board's perspective and interact better with my own board and see of what else am I missing. Because CEO, sometimes you get tunnel vision. You're focusing on a day job too much. So that really helps. But overall, being different companies, different industries, it helps us identify best practices and also not so good practices. So then what I learn and what I try and do is we say, bring the best, but not the rest. So you guys have to work through that. And sometimes I catch myself making mistakes or thinking of doing things that I know I've seen others do poorly. But I've had so many bosses that I have a list of all the things bad bosses do. So sometimes I can't, oh shit, no, Alok, don't say that because that's what bad bosses do. You don't want to be a bad boss. I think that just makes you richer. I'm a lifelong learner. I like learning. So all of these experiences are just great to learn. And the key is to apply them, going back to what I said earlier, bring the best, not the rest.
Yeah. All right. Uh, I think balancing long-term strategy with short-term operational demands is a challenge many leaders face as well, right? So how do you approach this balancing act in your role?
Yeah. CEO's job is all about balance, right? You balance shareholders versus customers. You balance investors versus board members. You balance short term versus long term. But I think that's the job of a CEO to make those decisions. I think again goes back to long term value creation, what we talked about earlier. If we are focused on the North Star being long term value creation, the short term, long term is just math. It's more about if I invest now, is my payback 2 years or 4 years or 7 years? And you just work through that. As a public company, I try my best not to get caught in the quarterly earnings situation. A lot of companies, they do heroics at the end of the quarter. We do the opposite. We tell people, close the quarter as if it's just another day in the business. Don't disrupt the day-to-day business. That's probably the one short-term thing I want to avoid is not get overly focused on the quarter. I treat quarter as the end of every day. But beyond that, operational demands, you just have to have good people running it. There are KPIs, you work through that. And for long-term objectives, you still have goals and objectives that you need to keep hitting. You have to do both.
Got it. Got it. It's a very interesting perspective. You mentioned earlier, right, that you and your team spend a lot of time talking to your folks, keeping the focus, etc. Right. So, in your organization, or even you personally, right, how do you stay connected with your teams and foster this culture, right, of focus, of collaboration across the organization?
Yeah, I think staying in touch is important, right? So, I mean, personally, I have an internal, we used to call it YAM, or I think it's called Viva Engage. So, I have a channel there. It's called Ask Alok. Anybody can get on and ask a question, right? So, that just to give you an example of that, one-on-one with the VPs. Actually, I fairly got to see a lot of work on even things like LinkedIn because I realize half the employees are spending a time on LinkedIn. And if they are, I would rather they focus on Lennox versus our other companies might be trying to recruit them. So we do a lot of that intentional pieces. I hold town halls. I visit every location at least once a year, every year. I go to the cafeteria and stand in line and get my own food. I learn a lot, by the way, in those standing in the line, and people just come to chit chat with you. So you gotta be accessible, open door, accessible, be a leader who's approachable. Collaboration across the organization. First of all, you gotta have the right mechanism, right? You gotta make sure the incentive structure does not disincentivize collaboration. Often in companies, I found that incentive structure was to disincentivize collaboration. So you got to work through that. There's no easy answer, but there are lots of good answers. So you kind of work through that. And then you just have the opportunity to rotate people around. If within the organization, if you can move people from residential to commercial, commercial to corporate, corporate to services, that helps too. Because you just got to get people more familiar with Linux. Now, fortunately, we're a relatively small company. We don't have to deal with million employees and 100,000 employees. For us, the fact that we are all co-located in the leadership team, that helps a lot. We are old school. We all have offices next to each other. We meet each other 4 or 5 times a day, just going and running between meetings. Those things all help. So,
all right. And then I think one thing that I really wanted to ask you was, you're the eighth CEO in Lennox long history, as you mentioned, right? 150-year-old company. What legacy do you hope to leave behind at the company, right? What would you imagine your legacy to be?
we say this in our town halls as well, and I say I only have one job, which is to leave the company better for the next generation. If you think about, now you can't define that better, but I'll try and define it for you if you're interested. But all we have to do is leave the company better for the next generation. It has to be that our growth prospects are better when I leave. It has to be that our market share is better. It has to be that we have better talent. Just think of better in every aspect. did I leave it in a better spot than what I found it from? And is the ninth CEO of the company, whoever comes in, are they going to look at it saying, wow, I have a good foundation. It's so much easier for me to take it to the next level. I admire the seventh CEO, my predecessor, because he left us in a great spot. I had a solid foundation to build future success. I hope to do the same thing for the ninth CEO. We're never going to reach perfection, but let's make it better every day.
All right. On that note, Alok, I'd really want to thank you for your time. Right, this is a very interesting observation, a good learning opportunity for me as well. And we got to hear some great perspectives from you on your leadership as well as Lennox as a company. So I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be on the podcast. And congratulations on everything that you're doing. And look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, of course, Alok. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Ayna Insights. Please visit ayna.ai for more podcasts, publications, and events on developments shaping the industrial and industrial technology sector.